Good morning, reflectors.
Good morning.
Welcome to our first Friday reflection of the year, where we look back at the week that we are ending today and reflect on all that we talked about, what came up for us as we reflected on the intentions and the ideas that we discussed. Yesterday, I mentioned that I was going to share my process of how I came up with my word of the year because Annette shared hers. So yours is anchored, mine is wholeness. And as I mentioned this in December. I also mentioned that I mentioned this in December earlier this week. I was originally going to go with trust. Now, I started with trust, and that felt good for a while. I thought, that's my word of the year, trust. I'm going to learn how to trust, or I need to trust.
Interestingly, I didn't even think I wanted a word for the year, but you were really, trust is going to be
on the word of the year.
You were going to have your word of the year.
So we did our month of trust. That was December's theme. I learned a lot. It was helpful. It gave me a lot to think about. But then when we said goodbye on December 19th and we took our break from podcasting, it gave me enough space to stop and think. All through the break, I was trying on trust. I was thinking about how I could incorporate that, what I could focus on, and it just didn't feel right. I think that's the best metric that we all can use. If you come up with a word, you try it on just like you would if you were trying on a pair of pants. You look in the mirror and say, it's not bad, but it just doesn't feel right. Maybe there's something better out there for me. So I did a lot of what you did. I didn't journal and write things down. I struggle with the journaling a lot. It's good. It's always helpful when I do it. But I have all these thoughts in my head. And then when I sit down to type them out or handwrite them out, suddenly my mind goes blank and I can't think of anything. It's better if I just think as I go rather than to try to force myself to write things down. So I did a lot of thinking about trust and didn't feel right. And so I tried on a few other pairs of pants. I tried on a few other words. I tried health, which didn't feel bad, but it also didn't feel all that right. Because when I thought about health, there were too many parts of it and it got confusing. Trust felt like it wasn't big enough. And this kept on going. I followed my own threads of angst and unsettledness that I had within me. And the thing that I noticed throughout our break is it gave me time to return to my roots, return to a nice structured routine, because I didn't have a very strict schedule. I didn't have to be anywhere early in the morning like I usually do. So I got to sleep a lot more than normal. I got to wake up and ease into the day and meditate and do my yoga. I got to exercise some, but I also didn't exercise that much. I just let myself take a break. And it felt so good. It felt so good, not because the schedule shifted, but there was enough space in my days that I could shift, that I could listen, I could notice, and I could align myself with what I knew to be true inside of me. So after, I'd say a week, and I was feeling really good, getting a lot of sleep like I mentioned, I felt whole. Like I felt like me again. Not that I don't feel like me on most days, but when I'm tired and I'm going, I don't have time to really think about my life and reflect on things all that much. And it's all gas and no brakes, and it's here, there, and everywhere. I don't have enough space to stop and be still and inquire within. So having the time to stop and be still, inquire within, and just do some of the things that maybe I say no to because I say I don't have time, I felt so good. And that was the feeling that I know in 2026 I need to focus on feeling all year long. That feeling of wholeness. And it's not a wholeness, and this is okay, so stick with me on this. It's not I feel whole because I'm doing certain things. Sure, the meditation helps. Nice yin yoga where I just get to be still. That all helps. But it's more this inner feeling I have about myself.
You're bringing up an essential point that I want everyone to keep in mind when they're thinking about receiving their word for the year. When you think about the word health, now if that's somebody's word for the year, that's fine. But health can imply that we're not healthy. So that the word of the year would be more of a corrective word.
And whose version of health are we using?
Yes. But what we're concentrating on with this month of orientation and starting with receiving our word for the year, we're returning to ourselves. So these threads of angst, those are the threads where we're not with ourselves. That's why you could say like we're split. Some of the words that I was talking about this week is it kind of implied there was a split and now I want to return. Returning to ourselves is completely different than making a correction. Because you're right, like with this correction, well, whose metric am I using for this correction?
And I've felt this way before. That's kind of the cool thing especially when you talk about returning to something that's maybe dimly lit or hidden within ourselves that we haven't looked at for a while. So
or
we need
forgotten.
To dust it off, and maybe we've forgotten it. It's not like I haven't felt whole before. I have, and it feels wonderful. And so it is returning to that experience and creating it in a way that I can feel it each and every day, even in the midst of the storm.
Maybe we could add a little bit. So returning to that experience. What experience? Returning to the experience of being whole within myself. For me, returning to the experience of feeling anchored within myself. We may not have ever felt, I'm going to use my example, maybe I can't think of times in my life like I'm different than you. You know what wholeness feels like. And so you're returning to what you know. I don't know if I've ever experienced being anchored the way I know I want to experience being anchored. But there is an inner knowing.
Yeah, there's something in you that knows what anchored should feel like.
And could feel like.
And will feel like.
And does feel like. It's a returning, not a correction. I want to make sure we make that point.
Right. And even when we are doing the introduction to the episode and I'm talking about before we're making decisions or we're fixing ourselves or striving for something, I also want to do away with those words just like I want to do away with the shoulds, the musts, the oughts, and the have tos. When we're deciding on something, it's not a permanent decision anyway. We're just choosing until we decide to choose again. When we're fixing, that is implying that there's something wrong with us that must change or be different, and we should force it to be different. Otherwise, we're going to be punished or we're going to make a mistake. Again, all of this is choosing again. If something's not working, we choose again and go a different route. Striving and grasping never works. I've never felt it in my life. I've never witnessed it in my life where people strive for something and end up happy. When we're striving and we're grasping and we're seeking outside of ourselves, it doesn't usually end with a permanent solution. It doesn't feel good long term. It might feel fine temporarily, and we could say, yeah, that was great. And then eventually that good feeling wears off, and we got to strive for something else. And we're always going to be striving. There's always something to strive for. But when we shift that around and we make it a return, a journey home, maybe a hero's journey home. You can listen to them on last year. When we take that hero's journey home, there's something about it that's a feeling that I would call indescribable. It feels so true. It feels almost like everything and nothing all at the same time. It's like you're coming home after a long trip and everything is the way you left it. I remember when I was a kid and we would go on family vacations, there'd always be this smell, this certain smell that when we got home, that was like, oh, we're home now. I don't know what smell that was. Maybe Annette, since you're my mom, you could enlighten us. But it just was like, that's the way home smelled. And then that's for me was the indicator, oh, okay, we were gone, but now I'm home. And I get to feel that sense of being home again.
I love your little metaphor there because we lose ourselves in this world. I mentioned the other day that I would work in your classrooms when you were in late elementary school, and then I wouldn't really work in classrooms when you were in middle school, but I was try to be involved. And I noticed where the kids getting off the bus and all the kids looking the same and trying to act the same. Well, that just keeps going. And then we start comparing ourselves to other people, and typically those closest to us is who we're going to compare ourselves to the most. And we lose ourselves. We lose sometimes our personality. Sometimes we lose our values. It really is a journey home. This personal development work is a journey home. And this is one important step that we can take this year together, is we all have our words for the year and we know why, whatever process, whether it was more informal like Ada, you may not journal, but you were trying some on. You went through all the steps that I went through. I was just a little more linear about it, wrote it all out. Truly, the work of our life is to return home to who we truly are. This is going to be a great month helping us to get started on this year's journey.
So our intention for today and for this weekend is, I will return home to myself. I will return home to myself. Thank you so much for joining us for this first week of 2026 of Morning Intentions. And we appreciate you being here with us. Our day is better because you are part of our day. See you Monday.
See you then.
I'm wanting something more, and I'm ready to begin. A life of happiness awaits me. It starts today when